Live from the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right show. Greetings, friends, and happy Friday. Good to be here, as always. Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email, at What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter. So the summer of 2025, which is now half over, we're the 1st of August. It's passing by quickly, but not without a devastating wake, taking with it all conventional thinking on politics as we've known it in the past decade plus. Now, well, you and I, we have always had a healthy amount of skepticism when it comes to the powers that be, the status quo, the deep state, the uniparty, the blob, whatever you want to call it. I have to be, many of you know, right, from listening to the program, so I'm not admitting this, but I'm reiterating it. For many years, I'm skeptical sometimes of the skeptics, and I wait to see what the evidence reveals. So it is with that said, if you don't know me, and you don't know that I'm not one of these people I'm not one of the people who are rushing to immediately assume that there's some gross, vast conspiracy. When I tell you there was and probably remains in effect a gross, vast conspiracy, and that much of what we were told was complete bunk, take my word for it. It's not just the revelations from Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI, and the stuff that she released in the last couple of weeks, the predicate, some of the predicates for the Russia collusion investigation, Crossfire Hurricane, the subsequent investigation by John Durham, special counsel, the annex of his report, which is where all the evidence is, all the supporting documentation. That's why we keep talking about this annex. That's where the good stuff was. It was all classified. It was all unavailable. And so the big news, of course, this week is that Chuck Grassley in the Senate released it, had it declassified, and published it. We talked about this all yesterday. But it's information that was previously released many years ago that it's back in the spotlight. And I mean the DNC emails. You remember these emails contained all sorts of embarrassing things for the Democratic Party. The DNC emails published by WikiLeaks, this would have been back, in 2016, during the summer of 2016, specifically July 22nd, just before the Democratic National Convention. These emails, approximately 19,000 emails and 8,000 attachments. And this is important because I'm going to later tell you why this is relevant. It's a big, big file is my point. These emails came out and it just was an absolute mess. Remember what it had in it. It showed that the Democrats were biased against Bernie Sanders, that they were favoring Hillary. They were conspiring to aid and abet the campaign of Hillary, even though they knew full well that Hillary was the less popular of the two candidates, with the basically the people in the Democratic Party, right? The grassroots, elitism, corruption, divisions within the Democratic Party galore. But behind the scenes, people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz and John Podesta were making certain that Clinton would win the Democratic nomination. There is no doubt that the Democratic National Committee emails that were released in the midst of that campaign in 2016 had an impact. All right, we understand that. We reference them all the time on this program. We were told immediately that these emails were the product of a Russian hack. We were told about some guy, remember this Guccifer or Guccifer 2.0 was some pseudonym? And the agencies, the U.S. intelligence agencies, right, the Brennan people, the CIA, NSA blob immediately came out and said, yeah, this came from the Russians. This is a hack by the Russians, and used it as further evidence that the Russians were favoring Trump. Now I'm bringing up the WikiLeaks release. This is not new news, but I'm bringing it up in light of the fact that we've learned over the past several weeks, couple weeks, and particular after yesterday's release from the Durham Annex, that it was quite the other way around. The Russians were, in fact, wanting Hillary Clinton to win. The Russians had dirt on Hillary Clinton, for example, her health deteriorating. They had information like this on Hillary, and they didn't release it. They were concerned about it getting released. They were holding it back. It never made its way to WikiLeaks. So why were these Democratic National Committee emails, John Podesta's emails, Wasserman Schultz's emails, why were they released, and only them, by Russia to WikiLeaks? We don't have the definitive answer, but it is, I think, makes common sense that if the Russians had even worse information and had information that they was in their possession at the time when Trump, at the late stages of the campaign, was neck and neck with Hillary in some polls, it simply doesn't make sense that the people that wanted to damage Hillary in July, right before the convention, would then turn around and not want to damage Hillary, in the late stages as an October surprise, or maybe even in the first days of November as the election neared. That's the $1 million question. If it doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't make sense to me either. The logical answer here is that these emails were not hacked by the Russians. The logical answer here is that they got released another way. Now, what could that be? The name Seth Rich comes back to mind. If you'll remember, Rich was a Democratic National Committee staffer. He was 27 years old. And in the early morning hours of the 10th of July in 2016, this would be approximately about 12 days before the files were leaked to and published by WikiLeaks, he was found murdered. He was shot twice in the back. The Metropolitan Police Department in D.C. classified it as a likely botched robbery attempt. His murder still has not been solved. Now, conspiracy theories, of course. Many people have said, it's Hillary again. The long hand and deadly hand of the Clintons at work once again. But I'd like to dust this off, because now that we see the extent to which Hillary Clinton and her cabal of Washington, D.C. insiders conspired among each other and together to literally frame Trump and many of his associates, subvert democracy, attempt an actual honest-to-goodness coup in conjunction with the Obama administration, I don't think there's anything that Hillary Clinton and these people working behind the scenes to do what, so far what little we know is confirmed, that there's anything that would be really beyond them. There is a strong likelihood, I'm not saying it happened, but there is a strong likelihood that Seth Rich or someone like him shared these files, gave them to WikiLeaks. And if you're asking why, imagine for a minute that you are a 27-year-old Democrat, idealistic Democrat. You're young, you're devoting your time to a job that frankly doesn't pay very well. These jobs never do. You're in D.C., you're in the midst of it, and this election, this primary, is a heated primary between an establishment candidate, Hillary, and an inspiring Democratic socialist named Bernie Sanders. And you come to D.C., you come to this equation, this situation, with all that idealism, and in the space of a few short months realize that the machine you're giving your life to, you're devoting your sweat to. You're losing sleep over, you're sleeping in a crappy apartment, you have no money. You're devoting your effort and energy to help an organization that is crookedly, and I'm talking about the Democratic National Committee, crookedly conspiring to select a candidate. It would be enough for your average idealistic young person to lose a little sleep over such a situation, right? And perhaps even spurn them to blow the whistle. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The show will be back in a moment.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Well, folks, one of the reasons I'm bringing up these DNC emails is because it was part of the narrative that the Democrats used over and over again. The Russians hacked it. They were helping Trump, right? And it was part of the great lie. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Welcome back to the What's Right show. I'm in just this stage questioning everything now. It was pretty easy for me to say that folks running around calling Seth Rich, the DNC staffer, a victim of Hillary Clinton, imagining a world where Hillary was sending her henchmen to to shoot 27-year-old staffers in the back was a little far-fetched. Like I said in my open, all of this stuff that is coming out now makes me think that nothing would be beneath or above these people's capacity to do evil. These are some wicked, despicable folks that would do anything to keep and hold power. So at any rate, it's going back to the DNC leak because now this is all being questioned. There was a NSA guy, senior NSA guy, who was interviewed about this. And this is his name is Bill Binney. He's a former technical director at the NSA. And this was when this had all broken. And so Binney goes through and he says, this is back in 2020. He basically describes the packets of information that he looked at when he looked at this WikiLeaks, publication of these DNC emails. And here's what he says:
We were looking at the files posted by WikiLeaks, because the allegation from the beginning is that Russia hacked the DNC and gave the emails to WikiLeaks to publish, which they did. They published. So we looked at those emails to see if there was something there that might give us some idea of how WikiLeaks got that data. Now, all those files, all 35,813, had a last modified time that was rounded off to the last to an even second. So they all ended up in even seconds. Now, if you know anything about data processing and data storage and things of that nature, there is a program that was quite common in the past using what's called FAT file formatting, file allocation table formatting, which is a process that when doing a batch process of data and transferring it to a storage device like a thumb drive or a CD-ROM, it rounds off the last modified time to the nearest even second. So that's exactly the property we found in all that data posted by WikiLeaks. Now, that said, very simply, this data was downloaded to a storage device, a CD-ROM or a thumb drive, and physically transported before WikiLeaks could post it.
So the allegation that we all heard in the media about a Guccifer, however you pronounce it, 2.0 hacker affiliated with the FSB, the Russian security forces. Doesn't seem like it's the case. As this Binney guy claims here in this interview, and by the way, Binney's been interviewed by the New York Times. He had mainstream media credibility, so this isn't some, guy that's popping off. This has the fingerprints or the hallmarks of data that was transferred physically and not over the web. Binney continues.
We looked at all those files and said, okay, we ran a program to calculate the transfer rate of all that data, because all you have to do is look at between the two timestamps, the file name and the number of characters in the file, and take the difference between the times, and that's the transfer rate for that number of characters. So we found that the variations ran from something like 19 to 49.1 megabytes per second. Now that means 19 to 49 million characters per second. And that we said the international web would, and the World Wide Web would not support that rate of transfer. Not for anybody who's just, a hacker coming in across the net trying to do it. It won't support that kind of.
Listen to this. I just paused it for a second. The point is, this file was so huge. Remember, I said that there were so many emails plus attachments. The amount of data here, the sheer amount of data, could not have gone out over the web and maintained precisely the timestamp that these files contained. It would have taken a long time.
Transfer. And some people thought we couldn't, that was wrong, that it could be done. And so we said, okay, we're going to try it. So we organized some hackers in Europe to try to transfer a data set from the US over to Europe just to see how fast we could get it there. And we tried it from Albania and Serbia, a couple places in the Netherlands and London, data center. Well, we got various rates, but the highest rate we got was between the data center in New Jersey and one in London, and that was 49.1 megabytes per second, or 12 megabytes per second, which is 1/4 the rate, little less than 1/4 the rate necessary to do the transfer at the highest rate that we saw in the Guccifer 2 data, which meant it didn't go across the net.
He says Guccifer. I guess that's the right way of saying Guccifer 2.0, the alleged hacker that got this email. The way Binney is describing it here, it looks like it's an inside job. Now, there is no evidence saying that Seth Rich is the guy who grabbed it, but it is likely, okay, that someone internal did this. Somebody with access to the building. And I think it is suspicious, and we can agree on this, that a staffer who was there at the time that this happened, later, but very shortly after this breach occurs, which perhaps the Democratic Party, the DNC, realized it occurred. I have this kind of software here at the firm. If you come into my office and start downloading things off the server, I get an alert. I'll know about it. I've caught employees who are on their way out stealing stuff, from me and from our server. I've had that happen. So they would have gotten a notification of it. They would have been onto him before the police. Now, the DNC did something, and this is important too, presumably, because we still haven't heard anything about this, presumably they didn't go to the police with this breach. They handled it somehow internally. Is it because they decided amongst each other right from the get-go that they would call this thing a Russian hack and add it to the pile of so-called evidence to use against Trump to show that Russia was colluding with Trump, at the very least actively assisting Trump and his efforts to become president because they favored him? Looping it all together and packaging it up into one of the greatest lies told in politics in my lifetime. And another important point, every person who made a public pronouncement about this was lying. Most, if not everything that came out of Hillary Clinton's mouth was a complete and total fabrication. And this is why now we have to re-examine everything. Can't assume that these people did one thing right. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Hi, Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. I am Nevada's favorite recovering Californian. Yes, happy Friday. We are getting through it all. So pretty much everything the Democrats have done since the election of 2016 is now under scrutiny. And it, I think, ought to include a careful examination, re-examination of the allegations of 2020. Trump has long maintained that the 2020 election was stolen. And the retort from the learned class has been, show us the proof. This taunt has followed Trump and his supporters. Made the allegations now for the better part of 4 years. So, what of this? And do we start looking at this now? I'm convinced, by the way, that Trump behind the scenes, his people are examining the 2020 election. For Trump, this is a matter of honor. He believes very strongly the election was stolen. Now, I want everybody to remember just how close it was, okay? Because I now doubt everything. I doubt literally everything the Democrats, if they are capable of orchestrating the Russia collusion hoax as we now understand it, essentially bringing about a coup on the orders of a sitting president against a political adversary and later a president-elect, and ultimately against a sitting president, Donald Trump, in 2016 and 2017, then they're certainly capable of printing ballots. This Russia collusion hoax is a lot more sophisticated than simple ballot stuffing. Rasmussen Reports released today a reminder of ballots stored in Georgia and a witness statement under oath describing how this person saw stacks and stacks, reams of ballots sitting pre-printed, neatly bundled, perfectly crisp, all with Joe Biden selected as president. If you've ever worked compiled ballots or collected ballots, even if it's just for family members, or you have your wife fill out a ballot and she tells you, go take it to the poll, does that look perfectly crisp and clean and untouched and unmarked like it was straight off a photocopier? No, it doesn't. And these questions and others have been raised. Now, how close was it? Well, Trump's path to victory would have required flipping Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin. That was the bare minimum that he would have needed. How badly did he lose in Arizona? Well, the margin was 10,000 votes. That's it. Just 10,000. Georgia was 11,700. Wisconsin was 20,800, 600, almost 700 votes. These are not a lot of votes. It comes out to just about 43,000 combined votes. You remember, by the way, in Arizona, Maricopa County, and the problems with the vote machines and how they went down magically on Election Day in areas where Trump had great support at a time when most Republicans were not voting early. That's right. So this, and by the way, if 43,000 votes had gone a different way, it would have been a 269 to 269 tie. And the decision would have gone to the Republican House. Wonder how that would have turned out. There's an affidavit. I describe Rosemary Parish, Cobb County, Georgia, hand recount monitor. Hand recount monitor. And she wrote an affidavit, again under oath. I observed thousands of mail-in absentee ballots in pristine condition being counted at the back of the room. The paper looked perfect with no folds or creases. I noticed that the print on the ovals looked perfect as well. The ballots had the appearance of being copied off a printer. When lawyers representing Trump sought to question election results, what happened to them? They were attacked themselves. Some were indicted, for example, down in Fulton County, Georgia, by none other than Fani Willis. And then, of course, we have our friend John Eastman, the State Bar of California, seeking to disbar him. And the, and the D.C. Bar, by the way, Jeff Clark, one of the lawyers that, that he was arguing, there's 140,000 2020 Fulton County election ballots that are still locked in a warehouse and unavailable. And when lawyers have tried to get at it, they literally get threatened with extinction, with professional elimination. This is crazy. And here's what we get as a fact check from the mainstream media. Well, there's nothing new here. This is all original. Well, yeah, okay, because you never get... The original claims were never actually investigated. And and why would they be? The people that took power in government were the very same people that colluded against Trump in 2016. They went right back into office. And Trump, to his great discredit, if I can say this, I understand, of course, big asterisk, that he was distracted by people coming for him throughout his first term, but he let and continued to have people like Mark Milley inside his system, his political orbit. Trump never purged the people who were participating in a coup against him. And by the way, he didn't even realize half of this was happening until much later, until it was too late. Somebody asked Comey, remember Comey met with Trump and he said, well, there's this evidence against, those PP tape, you've got some, Mr. President, sorry to tell you this, but there's something allegation that this, you maybe, I don't know, hired some hookers in Moscow to tinkle on a bed once slept in by Barack Obama. I mean, the whole thing is so ridiculous, folks. I keep saying what it is so people understand, if you're just new to this, how crazy the Steele dossier was. You know that Comey never told Trump, well, Mr. President, and by the way, this evidence, doing little air quotations, evidence came from Hillary Clinton's campaign. Never brought that up. Well, yeah, here's Comey talking to Stephanopoulos, getting asked, why didn't you tell the president about this?
Fine. Did you tell him that the Steele dossier had been financed by his political opponents?
No, I didn't even think I used the term Steele dossier. I just talked about additional material.
But did he have a right to know that?
That had been financed by his political opponents? I don't know the answer to that. It wasn't necessary for my goal, which was to alert him that we had this information.
Do you even understand how bad Trump's first term was? That he had a guy like Comey as his FBI director withholding information because Comey knew that he wanted Trump, he was actively working as a coup partner of the Obama machine to eliminate Trump's presidency. If I were Trump, you kind of start to understand why he puts people in positions that have high levels of trust. even if maybe they're not the like top person for the job. With Trump, after what happened to him in his first term, loyalty and reliability is everything. These are the lessons you learn after Washington stabs you in the back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. That clip of Comey, by the way, was his first sit-down interview after he was canned as FBI director. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings, friends. Welcome back. Remember, by the way, when Trump fired Comey, the media, working in tandem with the Democratic Party and the Obama machine, which is what I'm calling this cabal now. It went beyond Hillary Clinton. It went up to Obama. And it was the Obama people that were orchestrating these shenanigans and this attempt at a coup. And the Obama people that then seized power via Joe Biden's lifeless corpse in 2020 into 2021. So, isn't it astounding? The media then used Comey's firing after Comey admits literally on tape here in front of the entire country, well, I didn't feel it was necessary to tell the president of the United States, the source, the highly suspicious source of really unbelievable intel that we are using as the basis to open Crossfire Hurricane back in the summer and to investigate Trump and to continue investigating Trump while he's been sworn in as president. And by the way, the media, look, Stephanopoulos, what do you feel like you need to tell him? And at this point, they are so confident that they're going to take Trump out that Comey just says, well, I didn't think it was necessary at all. It's moments like this that are going to come back and haunt these people. The media were helping them out, right? Like Stephanopoulos is trying to, do a good one here. They're celebrating Comey, and they're trying to point at, Comey's ouster, his firing, as, another example of corruption by Trump. Anything Trump did to fight against the Russia collusion, against the attempted coup by Team Obama, was simply repackaged and presented as evidence of his guilt. This is so fundamentally at odds with our system. It's like telling a defendant, if you are a defendant in a criminal case and you are putting on a defense, that is evidence that you're guilty. If you have a lawyer on your team who is not doing a good job at representing you in trial, and you fire that lawyer, well, my goodness, you must be guilty as sin. Side note, there's one country culturally, at least that I'm aware of, where this is true. This is the way they think. Robbie, do you know which one? This is exactly how Japan operates. If you are a criminal defendant in Japan, and I love the Japanese, they're different than us. If you're a criminal defendant in Japan, you're supposed to go, I am so sorry. And you're supposed to, basically, metaphorically, commit ritualistic suicide, admit guilt, ask for punishment, maybe get mercy this way, okay? But you take the fall, right or wrong. If it happened on your watch, you're dead meat. So, but this is not our system. But this is how the Democrats proceeded. And if you just roll the tape, of the last 9 years through your head, and every time, Trump says, no, it didn't happen this way, or the election was stolen, or, no, it's not the fine people hoax. Whatever it is, Trump, whatever defense he puts up, they turn around, and the media and the blob get together and find a way to make it seem as though he's even guiltier. He's even guiltier than we thought. My goodness. And now it's all being revealed as a giant fraud. It's all coming apart. So I tell you, well, of course I'm encouraged. Yes, I'm encouraged, but I think we're just scratching the surface. And that's why I bring up the DNC emails. I bring up that as one of the original lies that was told in the summer during the election when the DNC emails showed up at WikiLeaks, got published days before the convention. And as I mentioned earlier in the hour, oh, it's a hack. It's Guccifer 2.0. It's this and that. And then you have high-level NSA people saying, not so fast. It really looks like it was one, impossible to take down over the web the way they have it, and two, it appears to be likely obtained through a device, a hard drive, if you will, an external hard drive, hardware via cord from inside the building. Now, whether it was Seth Rich or somebody else, who knows? But could there have been an idealistic young person or a Bernie supporter infuriated over the way the DNC was treating Bernie Sanders in 2016 and wanting to blow the whistle and expose the DNC? Yes. Who would be somebody that a person like this, an ideologue, would want to go to? Julian Assange at WikiLeaks. Did Julian Assange talk about Seth Rich? Well, funny enough, he did. This was an interesting moment in an interview with a journalist where the name Seth Rich came up by the founder of WikiLeaks.
Whistleblowers go to significant efforts to get us material and often very significant risks. As a 27-year-old works for the DNC, who was shot in the back, murdered just 2 weeks ago. For unknown reasons as he was walking down the street in Washington. So
that was just a robbery, I believe, wasn't it?
No, there's no finding. So
what are you suggesting? What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that our sources take risks and they become concerned to see things occurring like that.
But was he one of your sources then? I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
But why make the suggestion about a young guy being shot in the streets of Washington?
Because we have to understand how high the stakes are in the United States, and that our sources are, our sources face serious risks. That's why they come to us, so we can protect their anonymity.
But it's quite something to suggest a murder. That's basically what you're doing.
Well, that others have suggested that. We are investigating to understand what happened in that situation with Seth Rich. I think it is a concerning situation. There's not a conclusion yet. We wouldn't be willing to state a conclusion, but we are concerned about it. And more importantly, a variety of WikiLeaks sources are concerned when that kind of thing happens.
Isn't it funny that both Hillary Clinton, Mike Pompeo, and perhaps others wanted Julian Assange dead? Now, I say Pompeo because he's been revealed as one of the biggest snakes in Trump's former administration, a dangerous actor. Hillary Clinton one time was quoted by people in the room at a strategy session, State Department people, where Clinton openly inquired, according to those sources, quote, "Can't we just drone this guy?" It was personal. Here's Tucker Carlson, just at the beginning of the year, talking to Matt Taibbi. Now, Tucker Carlson certainly chases a few deep-end things, but Matt Taibbi's been pretty spot on about stuff. And they're just bringing up these questions. They're not making an accusation. It's the same thing I'm doing, but it's worth listening to.
A DNC staffer was killed in Washington, D.C. in an apparent robbery in which nothing was taken from him that I happen to know for a fact the MPD, the Metropolitan Police Department, thought was like bizarre. And they kind of didn't believe it. A Fox News host went on air and asked questions about this killing. Why wouldn't you? And the parents of the man who was killed either sued or I think they sued. They certainly threatened to sue and basically scared the crap out of everyone. So no one's ever asked a question about it since.
They hired a private investigator who looked around in that case, I remember, and there were some odd details there. The FBI ended up in possession of his laptop, and I don't know why that was the case, but it is the case.
And there were people at the DNC, one of whom I know, who thought that he was murdered for political reasons at the DNC. A very high-ranking person at the DNC told me that.
Well, of course, because we focus a lot on internal problems within the Trump campaign and later the government, the administration of Trump, but the same conflict existed at the DNC. This was a Bernie movement versus Hillary Clinton inevitability thing. Now I have to run, but there's, this is just, we need to go back to finding out what happened. And I don't trust anybody, least of all, not Hillary Clinton, Obama et al. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, back in a moment. Markets have been grouchy today because of the job numbers. I have some thoughts on that, if I may. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right Show, your place for common sense conservatism. Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. here on News Talk 840 KXNT. My email, if you've got questions, comments, concerns, sam@whatsrightshow.com, sam@whatsrightshow.com, and of course on X, formerly known as Twitter, @whatsrightsam. So, job reports came in, not the reports, revisions to the past 2 months of reports. June jobs revised down by 133,000. May jobs revised down by 125,000. And one thing that they're not saying is that the Bureau of Labor Statistics that manages this data has a history of revising these numbers down significantly. They did it under Obama. They released job numbers and then will come back a month or two later and go, oh, never mind, it's actually different. The Biden's Department of, just administration of the Labor Department had a history of faking data. And here I don't know what to make of it. I mean, during the Biden years, I understand that the people that work in these departments are by and large, dyed-in-the-wool Democrats. So I get under Biden them wanting to come out with a big number, run the story, and then quietly, some days later, month or two later, go, oh, really, we're just going to revise it down. That happened all the time. It happened every quarter, every month. And I believe the number is that the last, here it is. The last 15 of the last 17 reports have been revised lower. So that goes back, into the Biden years. Odd. Yes, agreed. Okay. Number one, I find that suspicious. Number two, I think reasonable questions can be made about how these job figures are calculated. And of course, the Bureau itself and the people who are counting these numbers. Trump, there's a big article in the Wall Street Journal that, this was about the market, because of course the market had some losses today, talking about how these job numbers have gone up. And one of the things that Trump in here, as I was reading this just before we went on air, Trump has directed his team to fire the top Bureau of Labor Statistics official after this report. Now, the way the Journal, of course, because it's the Wall Street Journal, is portraying it is because Trump wants to fire this person because he revised the numbers lower. It's not until deeper into the article that you get into some establishing facts, like they always get it wrong, right? So that's my point. There very well could be grounds for this. Now, something interesting. What's going on right now? Well, obviously, there's a lot of enforcement of immigration and illegal immigrants. You have, I'm certain, workplaces, particularly in red states, that are getting very concerned about hiring or retaining illegal immigrants. So beyond the disappointing headline, to the extent that it can be trusted, apparently hidden or embedded in this report was the best July ever for employment among native-born Americans. It was up by 2 million year over year, an annual growth 2.2 million faster than among foreign-born workers. So for, I think, the first time since the pandemic, the American employment is now significantly higher, and it's about 1.8 million above the pre-pandemic level. This is huge. So my take on this is that there are some labor adjustments that are occurring. Native-born jobs are up. Foreign-born jobs, by the way, good thing you asked, they're significantly down. And by significantly, I mean when we're talking about in the thousands, so about millions, you're talking about 32 odd million at a high of maybe 32,200 in March of 2025, down to about 30,800,000. So that's a couple million, like I said, a couple million jobs that have gone, foreign-born jobs, whether that's illegal immigration or not. But I suspect a significant portion of that is illegal immigration. So it's just the wrong take to say that the economy is tanking. But given that also the inflation report came out, inflation is way down. It's the lowest it's been since before Biden came to office. It's so low. It's sub 2 now. I mean, it's 1.8, 1.7? Nothing. Powell is so late on these rate cuts. And one of the things I keep thinking about this, right? If you assume that Trump, when he tweets things out, is market testing reaction to it, I suspect Trump is waiting for the right moment to push the outer limits of his authority and fire, or perhaps even indict, or otherwise push out of office Jerome Powell and effect a shakeup at the Fed. Yesterday, Scott Bessent said that essentially Chairman Powell's number of days were limited. The number of days in office that he'd remain in his position were probably going to run out by the quote unquote by the end of the year. And that's not exactly his term. So I think that a case now, because a lot of people are looking at these job numbers, and even people that are sort of middle of the road, reporter types and mainstream media types that are going, well, maybe Trump is right about, they're assuming the job numbers tell a worse story than they do. They're assuming that the Trump economy is crashing, which I don't believe. But then their next reaction is, well, maybe we do need a rate cut. Because if the first conclusion is true, if you assume that the Trump economy is now starting to sputter, that this jobs report is an indicator of that, well, then you would have to also assume, if you want the economy to survive, that the Fed has to do something about it. Now, remember, there has to be some economic pain that we feel to adjust for the euphoria of free money getting helicopter dropped on the economy in 2021. We simply have to pay the piper. Robbie, I read a story about a guy in Florida. I think maybe, well, I'm not going to say about what his background was, but this guy just got arrested. And I think the staggering total of his PPP fraud was about $30 million. And we forget that it was 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, that Biden released such an obscene amount of money into the economy, and you could just apply for it. The entire premise behind the stimulus money is that it would be deployed first and they would ask questions later. I remember going to my accountant. I think we only got maybe 70,000, 80,000 like that here at Sam and Ash. But, but people got a lot more, certainly. And I remember asking my CPA about it, like, how does this work? And he goes, literally, they are not underwriting any of these deals. They'll send you money. So we have to, and they'll verify maybe later. So if you want to stay out of jail, Sam, don't lie on the form. Of course, I would not do that. And so we submitted a truthful form. I only remember thinking it wasn't very much money, and called it a day and was grateful. Some portion of it we were paying back, and then the rest of it was forgiven. Well, this guy just created a bunch of fake companies, none of which were real, and he stacked up tens of millions of dollars, and he started buying yachts and watches and houses and whatnot. Lived a great life. Bought a Lamborghini, which is a real douchebag car, by the way. Lamborghini, Robbie, that is the worst car. Sorry to anybody out there who drives a Lamborghini. If you drive a Lamborghini, yeah, it's like yesterday, I'm going to digress, folks. It's Friday. Let me do this. Yesterday, I pull up to my favorite restaurant, and some jerk pulls up and has one of those Lamborghini SUVs, and he's parked blocking there's like parking stalls that go up the curb, right? So there's a lip to the curb, but there's you shouldn't park in front of the parking spots, is my point. Like, those are not parking spots on the street. And then there are 2 parking spots going up kind of a gentle driveway. And this jerk in a Lamborghini parks in there and blocks those 2 spots. And I'm like, commented to my friend, anyway, it was a Lamborghini Urus. And the guy who owns, of course, he's all, got the tattoos, and he looks like he's stolen about $30 million in PPP money. And so I commented to the maitre d' there. It's like, I said, looks like somebody's got a Urus infection. That's what happens. They get this Lamborghini brain. Okay, I got to take a break. But my point is, all this free money in the economy, the PPP money, the stimmy checks, couple thousand here, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 per household. All of that free money was like jet fuel in our economy. And it worked. It worked to give people a little bit of better feelings after being shut out of working. But as soon as it was spent, the prices of everything shot up. And now, in order to get inflation back under control, people have to we're feeling it. We are feeling economic pain in our economy. We are. And we shouldn't discount that. It's very important. Because I know a lot of folks out there who are definitely not feeling like we're in the golden age yet. So we gotta gently, get our way back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, going long. Robbie giving me dirty looks here over my Lamborghini stories. Sorry, Robbie. Sam Mirejovsky, back in a moment.
The Salmon Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Good to be here with you folks. Yes, more bad news for the Democrats today on CNN. Harry Enton delivering the news to Kate Bolden, talking about the brand, the Democratic Party brand, and how it is not perceived very highly. This is how it went.
Democrats at this point are historically divided. It is a complete and utter mess. It is messier than a hoarder's basement. What are we talking about here? The national early poll leader, 25% plus. Normally, that's where Democrats are. Biden was at 25% plus in 2020. Hillary Clinton was in 08 and 16. Gore was in 00 and 04. At this particular point, there is no one in the Democratic race for president who's polling at 25% plus. The water is quite warm. If you're a Democrat potentially thinking about running in 2028, jump right in, because at this point, there is no front runner.
What do you think Is that because how people view the Democratic Party right now, is that contributing to this?
Yeah, I think that is in large part of what's going on, is one of the reasons why there is no front runner. Nobody wants to put anybody up at the top of their ballot list, is because at this particular point, the Democratic brand is in the basement. It is total and complete garbage in the mind of the American public. The Democratic Party's net favorable rating, record lows in all three. Wall Street Journal, 30 points underwater. CNN, 26 points underwater. Gallup, 26 points underwater. And that is being driven in large part by discontent within the Democratic base. The Democratic base wants something different. We'll ultimately end up seeing who they choose. It'll be quite the thing who ultimately gets the rose.
And by the way, I don't even think that the full effect of the revelations from Tulsi Gabbard, from Chuck Grassley in the now much discussed Durham Annex, and other dribbles of information, for example, the burn pouches that Kash Patel found in the basement of the FBI. When the full totality of all this stuff comes to light and people really begin talking about it, and then the connections are going to start to be made between basically the entire Democratic Party establishment conspired to overturn an election. And they perhaps, as I mentioned earlier in this program, perhaps even conspired to oust Trump from office in 2020 with fraudulent ballots, gosh forbid. And then, wait for it to really unravel, we'll find out that there were paid agitators who hijacked January 6th and turned a political rally into a giant mess, that the images of violence were largely, if not completely, instigated by persons on the payroll of the very same people who colluded all the way back in 2016 to damage Trump. At this point, nothing is off the table in my view. In terms of suspicion, right? My suspicion levels are very high as it relates to this. That relates to the Democratic Party, all of them, and they're all tainted by it. And as this begins to come out, imagine that hoax after hoax, Trump collusion, Russia collusion, hoax. Now the next hoax, they'll talk about the election. What if we discover that's a hoax? Biden won. Not true. January 6th, insurrection. Completely not true. The House Select Committee investigating that burned a lot of evidence, didn't they, at the end? Speaking of burn bags, they just destroyed a lot of evidence. Wonder why they did that. Did anybody ask, why did they destroy their evidence that they had? And why did Biden issue them all pardons? Boy, these are just so curious, aren't they, these questions? I tell you, as it relates to the front runner or whatever here, Harry Enton's talking about, the flag bearer, standard bearer for the Democratic Party, if there is a quality candidate out there, who wants to go and grab the ring now? You don't want to be the brand new, captain on a sinking ship. Oh, I'm signing up. Smart people are waiting to see. How does this all pan out? We on the Republican side, I think we have some talent, plus we have an incoming administration, and likely the Democratic nominee, the Republican nominee is going to have some, will have some carryover credibility from this administration, i.e., Marco Rubio or certainly J.D. Vance. I do not see it at all possible at this point, for example, for DeSantis. I just don't think DeSantis has a hope or a prayer. He's trying. He's setting himself up for that, I think, but I don't see it. But my point is we do have standard bearers because we are on the up and up. The Republican Party has, in fact, done quite well considering all the forces that have been against us. I'll tell you, I remember when they went through the map of the sort of the plot graph of dissent within the right and dissent or disagreement on the left, and the left is just very homogenous, and they just lemmings, they go right over the edge. No matter what it is, they just repeat the same thing. They don't question anything. They don't disagree about anything. They all get on script and go. And Republicans question everything. And so it's been a struggle the last 9 years. There's been a lot of stuff that has been slung our way. I tell you, it's coming to light. So I think this is, Harry Enton's not getting into the, CNN doesn't want to admit this, but it's the smart people, if there are any in the Democratic Party, are looking around going, oh my God, they know it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's just like Tucker Carlson said. He had high-level people at the DNC going, I don't know, this weird thing about Seth Rich. I kind of feel uneasy about it. Smart Democrats know they can smell a rat. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Speaking of Democratic standard bearers, leaders of the Democratic Party, don't you think it's interesting that just as news of all of this Democratic collusion against Trump, wrongdoing, potential RICO action, treason even, an orchestrated coup by Team Obama against Trump, that just as this is all starting, both Kamala Harris and Joe Biden both surface roughly at the same time. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. So, what am I talking about? Well, Harris went last night on Stephen Colbert, what's left of his program. That's where Democrats go for their struggle sessions. And she basically, says she's not giving up on politics, but she's also not going to be, she's not going to be running for governor of California, and probably not even the presidency.
But just to go back to what you just said, is that I have to say, as someone who is very qualified for the presidency, a senator, attorney general of California, a vice president of the United States, and then a very hopeful and dynamic presidential candidate for the 107 days that you had to run, to hear you say that it's broken, to hear you say that our systems aren't strong enough, is harrowing.
Well, but it's also evident, isn't it?
No,
it is. And it is.
It is harrowing. I mean,
and it is.
I mean, there's almost no curse word bad enough.
But it doesn't mean we give up. That's not my point.
Okay, because that's what I'm hearing. Like you don't want to be part of the fight anymore.
No, oh, absolutely not.
This could have been our president. Do you know how bad the world would have been on fire if Kamala Harris got elected, and this is what we would have representing us around the world? I don't even know what she's saying. She seems to be turning down, from what I've cobbled together through her endless word salads, that she's not running for governor. She's signaled maybe she won't be running for president, but also not flat out turned it down. I don't know, Robbie, what you've heard. It's kind of what I'm sensing. I guess some people are claiming what they're hearing or reading between the lines here is that Kamala is gearing up for a run for the presidency, which I've got to believe that J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, Governor DeSantis, to the extent that Ron has a hope or a prayer of becoming the Republican nominee in 28, have got to have, they each must have a special place in their house for a shrine that they go to and pray that Kamala Harris runs against them. Now, I don't think the Democratic Party nominates her again. But I don't know. I'm not, listen, I barely, I don't understand the mess that's over there on the Democratic side. And depending on how these revelations go, certain people who are in the running, like, well, Gavin Newsom, for example, may decide to opt out. I don't know. I'm thinking still it's going to be Newsom. I do, Robbie. But Newsom himself is damaged. Oh, my gosh. So who knows? Now, guess who popped up as well? This is crazy. Remember the guy that pretended to be president for 4 years? And I'm not talking because he stole the election, but I'm talking because he really was not there mentally. That's right. Joe Biden literally came back and made an appearance. And this was at a Bar Association event, National Bar Association event. And this is just... Well, here he is. He's back.
Courts matter. The law matters. And the Constitution matters. I think a lot of Americans are starting to realize that under the pressure we're under now with this guy we have as president. Oh, get ready, folks. This is just starting. I'm proud I've appointed judges doing their best to be independent, fair, and impartial, respecting the rule of law and upholding the Constitution. I wish I could say the same for the executive branch, which seems doing its best to dismantle the Constitution. Oh, I'm being deadly earnest, man.
I'm being deadly earnest, man. I miss Joe. He gave us a lot of sound bites. What the hell did he just say? He seems to be a little obsessed about the courts, doesn't he? I would be too, by the way, if I were in on a vast conspiracy to overthrow a sitting president. I too would be concerned with the U.S. justice system that I know full well can be weaponized and used against a political opponent, now in the hands of a person, hint, hint, his name's Trump, who is righteously infuriated and now has evidence of your wrongdoing. Remember when Barron Trump, during the inauguration, Biden's standing there kind of mouth agape. He looks like he's just traveled across the country and the Pacific to go to Maui and visit with the fire victims. And then he's there like a corpse, mouth open. And yes, that's like a highlight reel of suddenly died. Biden was sitting there. He had the same look on his face during the inauguration, just knowing full well what was coming in the moments of lucid thought. And Barron Trump comes up to him and whispers something in his ear. Remember this? And people have said that Barron made a threat. Somebody said they overheard, watch your back or now you're next. Something to that effect. I mean, I'm just saying, Biden appears and talks about the courts. I mean, yes, he's at a bar meeting, but remember, these are the same bar people, state bar people that are out to get John Eastman's law license and every other lawyer that represented Trump and sought to get the truth on 2020. It's interesting. Here's another tea leaf for you if we're going to talk about the state of things. Now, this relates to some of the recent revelations from the Durham Annex and others. When you have Lindsey Graham, who is a rhino, okay? A rhino. When Lindsey Graham comes in and starts saying, yeah, there's a problem here. Yes, some of this stuff is problematic. When Lindsey Graham goes on television and starts talking like a MAGA patriot, this is where Obama and Biden and Hillary should really begin to sweat.
The warrant against Carter Page that was sought by the FBI, 3 of the 4 applications to the FISA court were signed by Comey. The FBI had information that the Steele dossier was politically motivated. It was the exclusive basis for the warrant against Carter Page. The subsource, this Danchenko guy who gave information to Steele, told FBI agents his hearsay is bar talk. It was never meant to be used in a legal proceeding. That, in spite of all that, they got warrant after warrant after warrant. So what did Page tell Strzok in August after Crossfire Hurricane opened up on July the 31st? Page, he's never going to become president, right? Strzok, no, he won't. We'll stop him. These are the 2 people leading Crossfire Hurricane. But
well, I've been saying this for years. Strzok and his girlfriend, right? He doesn't talk about this, but they were having an affair allegedly, and so Peter Strzok there and Lisa Page coming up with the phrase insurance policy, and then you got Lindsey Graham talking about this. And knowing now full well that this whole thing was concocted, not good.
What's important tonight is that for the first time we know that in January of 2016, Debbie Wasserman Schultz apparently meets with the Soros Foundation to talk about a plan to distract from the Clinton email scandal. And there's a statement where Obama said, I'm not going to have my president tarnished by the Clinton email scandal, suggesting to Comey and everybody else, you need to let this go. And at the same time, we now know from an email that Hillary Clinton, to distract from her own email scandal problems, set up the narrative that became Crossfire Hurricane, blaming Trump of being a Russian agent. And they planned this, coordinating between the campaign and this organization to create this storyline. That's what's new. I've never heard this before. I did not know that the Russians had hacked into the Soros Foundation and they had conversations between Democrats and the Soros group to set up a plot to say that Trump was a Russian agent. And it was known before Crossfire Hurricane the FBI was going to provide oil to it. So this was a conspiracy to blame Trump for being a Russian agent to distract from the Clinton email scandal to affect the outcome of the 2016 election.
I don't believe for a minute that Lindsey Graham didn't know about this before. I don't. But to me, Lindsey Graham might as well sometimes be a Democrat the way he acts. To me, this is evidence that the blob, the deep state, these even rhino Republicans, people that were around forever and participated in all this stuff, that like rats on a sinking ship are beginning to freak out and realize this is real. And Lindsey Graham is a lot of things. One thing, he's very smart. He's got excellent political instincts. And so he's getting ahead of this, and he is going on the record with, whoa, I didn't know any of this, but wow, this is a problem. And based on what we know now, this was a conspiracy to get Trump. And I'm telling you that's important because this is a sign that things are about to get really bad for the Democrats, for Obama, Hillary, Joe Biden. A lot of people inside D.C. are going to go down. I think the only good news here is for the lawyers. They're going to make a lot of money, okay? There's going to be a lot of legal fees that are going to be paid over the next couple of years, and good going on them. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Yeah, I just got an email here. Why am I bringing up Biden? Man, Biden can't be non-compos mentis and also be a master criminal. Good question. Let me answer that. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Welcome to the What's Right show. Taking apart this developing situation past couple of weeks, and of course, yesterday, getting all the details on Crossfire Hurricane and the crosstabs, the appendix, annex is what it's being called, the place where all the supporting evidence was. It's now been declassified, that Durham had in his report. So, okay. You know, one of the facets of this whole thing is that Hillary Clinton, with Barack Obama, concocted, cooked up intel, and then had it at their disposal for the debate that Hillary Clinton had with Trump in the 2016 election. And one of the things about it that was particularly infuriating is that the debates, right, you know, the playbook was basically find friendly people in the intelligence community to publicly lie, develop a talking point, get it out there before the debate, but not too far before the debate so that it can't get debunked. And then you whip it out on Trump on stage in front of millions of people who are not that well informed, hoping it sticks. Yes, I'm going to get to Biden. I got to set this up. Bear with me. Here's such a moment from the 2016 election, October 19th. This is Chris Wallace moderating. And, 12 days before the debate, DHS and ODNI started blaming Russian hacking of the DNC emails. Aha, Sam, here's why we were talking about Seth Rich. So, the DNC emails, the Russian hack. Here it comes again. And here's the moment where Hillary laid it on.
He has a very clear favorite in this race. So I think that this is such an unprecedented situation. We've never had a foreign government trying to interfere in our election. We have 17 intelligence agencies, civilian and military, who have all concluded that these espionage attacks, these cyber attacks, come from the highest levels of the Kremlin, and they are designed to influence our election. I find that deeply disturbing, and I think it's
She has no idea whether it's Russia, China, or anybody else.
I am not quoting myself.
She has no idea.
I am quoting
Hillary, you have no idea.
17 do you doubt 17
our country has no idea.
Civilian agencies? Well,
yeah,
he'd rather believe Vladimir Putin than the military and civilian intelligence professionals.
You condemn any interference by Russia in the American election.
By Russia or anybody else.
You condemn their interference.
Of course I condemn. Of course I can. I don't know Putin. I have no idea. I never met Putin. This is not my best friend. But if the United States got along with Russia, wouldn't be so bad.
Oh, prophetic words, right? See what she did here? And the absurdity of the lie now completely undressed and demasked. So, what was the DNC email hacked by the Russians of 2016 equivalent in the 2020 election? Anyone? Going once, going twice? Asking for a friend? Oh yeah, it's the Hunter Biden laptop from hell. Which, right before the debate, Biden got a bunch of his cronies, read Obama people, Hillary people, to come on the record, intel officers to say it was Russian disinformation. Here's how that went.
There are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They have said that this has all the 5 former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
That's exactly what.
Is this
that's
where you're
exactly
going?
what.
This is where he's going. The laptop is Russia,
Yes.
Gentlemen,
Russia.
I want to stay on the issue of race.
You
okay?
have to be kidding. Here we
Mr.
go
President?
again with Russia.
Unbelievable, right? But it was exactly Hillary Clinton's playbook. Now, one thing you have to understand about Joe Biden is that he was a lesser version of Obama and of Hillary in every way. Obama, love him or hate him, is a smart dude. Hillary Clinton, love her or hate her, is also a smart dude. Just kidding. That's Michelle. Hillary Clinton is a very smart lady. Biden, before he got dementia, was an idiot. He was an idiot. He was a buffoon. If you track his history in the Senate, some of his speeches and the things he did and all the, he no shortage of times that he stepped all over it. So he was very unoriginal. The 52, 51, however many it was that signed the letter saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, that was clown material, right? That was absolute clowning. And I think in some respects it led to the ultimate undoing because they kept pushing this Russian thing they pushed it too far. You can hear it in Trump's voice. Are you really going to go with again? Because, of course, he has been hearing false accusations against himself and his campaign associates for the better part of 4 years. Maybe 5 at this point. So what's going to happen is, Biden's in the fraud too. Now, Biden, the luckiest thing he might be able to do for himself and his family is croak, before any of this really starts to heat up. But unless Obama goes paddleboarding at Martha's Vineyard, he's going to be around to hold the bag. And Hillary Clinton, to the extent she doesn't get bundled up into the meat wagon like she did in that one September 11th ceremony, will also be here for her perp walk. And you and I, friends, we're going to be here for it with popcorn and bells on. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Great weekend, and I will see you on Monday.